On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, got a good show. Me and Payton started things off. We had to split it 2 and 2. Kenny and I, when we recorded, we're busy at different times. And so it'll just be me and Payton for the first part of the show doing the Mizzou segment. Then Kenny is going to be on for quick hits. But me and Payton started things out. We did a deep dive on Mizzou's cornerback room. Talked about Nick DeLoach. He got in some headlines for some good stuff he's been doing in fall camp, the redshirt freshman. So we talked about him. Kind of segued that into a conversation just about the Mizzou's cornerback room, what we like, what we don't like, which obviously it's a room that has a lot of, is being talked about a lot, considering what it lost and who might step up and all that. So me and Payton talked about all that, did a deep dive. We have a new game we're going to introduce for fall camp. We looked at quotes. Payton was doing a little guessing game, trying to guess the quotes and who said them amongst Mizzou's players. I had 5 names, and Payton had to guess who said the quotes. So that was a little fun game. Obviously, some good quotes in there as well. Made them kind of fun. So listen to that. Then me and Payton had a quick convo about basketball. Talked about where we kind of at this point in August see Mizzou maybe finishing in the SEC. That's a conversation we'll obviously revisit as the season gets closer. But 3 just kind of broader topics for you guys. And then Kenny and Payton closed out the show with quick hits, little Tigers in the Wild, talk some Tigers in the NFL. We did not talk about Harrison Mevis because we recorded this before he got waived by the Panthers. So I'll express my displeasure to that now. Very unfortunate for Mr. Mevis, but hopefully he ends up on another team. But yeah, talk some Tigers in the NFL and then did some headlines to close out the show. Payton and Kenny did. So good one. Split it up 2 and 2 for you, the people here to start your week. We'll dive into it. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Monday, August 12th. And if you're watching on the YouTube, and as you're about to hear, it's only me and Payton to start. We had to divvy things up because Kenny and I were both busy at different times Sunday afternoon when we recorded. So Kenny will be taking over for me in relief for quick hits. But it's me and Payton to start the show. The dynamic duo, they say, of The Unwritten Rule. Kenny's really just, I was going to say glue guy, but I was trying to roast him. So that's actually a compliment. But yeah. I don't know. He just kind of gets strung along. Just kidding. We love Kenny. And he'll be back for quick hits. But Payton, in the meantime, it's just you and I. And we were going to talk about a couple things. One specific room we're going to look at for Mizzou football in fall camp, the cornerback room, that I wanted to start with. We've got all the CBs pulled up on Mizzou's roster. We're going to talk about a few of them. But I want to start, Payton, with something that I saw recently from Gerard Hamilton. You should go read his stuff on Power Mizzou. He wrote an article about Nick DeLoach, who I think is a name we've talked about on this show. I don't know if it's a name Mizzou fans will be super duper familiar with, but he's reportedly, per Gerard's story, he's been getting some runs with the ones. He got some compliments from some of his elder statesmen in the secondary. Looks to be a guy who could maybe make an impact in a Mizzou cornerback room that obviously has a lot of question marks. For some background, I know, Payton, you already know this, that DeLoach was a wide receiver and a DB in, I think it's Cahokia. Thank you, Payton. From Illinois. He was a 3-star recruit in 2023. Was kind of just at the end of the cornerback depth chart last year, but obviously learned behind Cat and Ennis, and is apparently possibly in for a possible breakout in year 2, which in a room that feels kind of wide open in terms of names that could be considered as possible breakouts. I feel like that's a good thing. What do you think, Payton? Nick DeLoach, maybe a name that might be emerging here to start a fall camp for Mizzou.
It's good to hear that a couple of names are kind of separating themselves early in camp, because this is the position group that I am deathly afraid of the most in terms of just depth and really even the starters, because I mean, you just lost probably the best cornerback duo in school history in Ennis Rakestraw and Chris Abrams-Drain. And I mean, they've had Drayden Norwood. This will be Drayden Norwood's third year at Mizzou in the fold. He's played pretty sparingly as that third corner. I think he'll step up and play pretty well this season. And you bring in Toriano Pride, who wasn't like the bona fide starter at Clemson, but it wasn't because Toriano Pride was bad. Most Clemson people you see will compliment Toriano Pride's game there, but he was behind just like two very, very talented corners, including Nate Wiggins, who just ran one of the fastest 40 times in NFL combine history this past year and was a first round pick. So the top two you would hope can maybe not be as good as Ennis and Cad, but can at least fill in and be like strong enough to where it doesn't feel like a big drop off. But then after that, it kind of was like a battle for the third spot. You know, a lot of people pointed at Marcus Clark as maybe a guy that you could see stepping up. Nick DeLoach, as you mentioned, Jamarian Wayne has moved to corner. We had Gabe DeArmond from Power Mizzou on just this past week, and he mentioned Shamar McNeil was a guy that maybe they were going to look at. Cameron Keys, he's someone that had a very good scrimmage the other day, apparently. But as you mentioned, the one name that has continued to creep up is Nicholas DeLoach, and that's very, very encouraging. Like we mentioned, just a redshirt freshman, but I mean, pretty decent measurables, not too short at all, 6 foot. You definitely would like to see that. You would like to not just have, because Toriano Pride 5'11", Drayden Norwood 6 foot. I mean, there's not a ton of tall corners on this team. You have Jamarian Wayne maybe and Shamar McNeil. So you'd like to maybe see one of those two step up as well. But I mean, Chris Abrams-Drain was not a very big dude. Ennis Rakestraw was not like a physically imposing dude. So it's not the end of the world. Nick DeLoach is a name that has come up repeatedly. There was a highlight clip last week. It sounds weird to bring up a clip where it's a highlight of Luther Burden making a phenomenal like touchdown catch, but it was because it was an absolute dime from Brady Cook into pretty tight coverage from Nicholas DeLoach himself. So you kind of like to see that iron sharpening iron in practice. Any one of these corners is probably facing about as good a receiver core as they'll ever see this season in practice. When you just have Mookie Cooper, Theo Weiss, Luther Burden, Marquise Johnson off the bench, so many others coming at you. I have no doubt that the cornerback room is practicing against the best group it can face. But you never know until you step onto the field. So hopefully Nicholas DeLoach keeps impressing. We'll know probably against Murray State if he winds up maybe beating Marcus Clark for that third corner job.
Yeah, I think the fact he's even in consideration for someone who, you know, like you said, redshirted, didn't really appear, I don't believe, much at all last year. Yeah, I think it's interesting. This kind of competition seems super open. I mean, he was really adamant about how great of leaders. I just listened to an interview with him with DeLoach, where he was adamant about kind of learning from Ennis Rakestraw and Chris Abrams-Drain, and those guys still all stay in touch with the current cornerback room and are kind of trying to lead from afar there. So yeah, I think it's a name to watch, and I think it's, you know, you talk about some of these guys, talented players kind of getting buried, you know, for their first couple of seasons if they're not transfers. I'm glad you brought up Cameron Keys. He's someone who, like a couple of guys I saw in interview clips, they were asked, you know, who stood out on the defense. He was one that really stood out there that they mentioned right away. Like you said, seemed like he had a good scrimmage as a younger corner. So yeah, I think there's some promising, you know, kind of future pieces. I think where it feels a little scary, and this is what I want to get into, is the fact that, you know, as talented as those guys seem to be, and you hope that they, you know, kind of grow into, you know, an elite type of player. Obviously, the dream is of a Ennis or CAD level, but you know, that's a hard bar to reach. It makes me kind of nervous that you are relying on all these guys. And this is something we've known. I get it. But now that it's becoming more real with fall camp, it makes me nervous that some of these guys are going to have to be relied on for pretty big roles. I mean, I went through Payton, and I kind of want to ask you, when you look at the kind of leader, just going top to bottom in this cornerback room, I went through and I was writing down all their stats, and I wrote a couple PFF grades as well. I mean, there's not a lot of standouts. Frankly, like Drayden Norwood, I'm glad you brought him up first. He feels like the guy to me that needs to make the big leap. I think Toriano Pride, it's interesting because he transferred and his time was limited last year. Norwood is someone who's been in this program for a while. Feels to me like he needs to be the one. He had 20 tackles, 3 pass deflections. And Payton, I'll read you his PFF grades because I know you're a good interpreter of those. 68.2 coverage grade and 81.5 tackle grade, which I didn't realize it was that high. That kind of impressed me for a guy in Drayden Norwood. I mean, what do you think about just starting at the top, those two with him in particular?
Yeah, I think Drayden Norwood and Toriano Pride for the season to have a chance to really be a special one, those two have to be hits. Drayden Norwood, like you mentioned, I'm sure it feels like the staff is absolutely like through the roof high on him, because like we mentioned earlier, I mean, he spent his freshman year at Texas A&M, then Mizzou got him, and they've been able to kind of just bring him along, kind of slowly ease him into playing more and more snaps as that third corner alongside Ennis and Chris Abrams-Drain. And Ennis missed time last year, missed quite a few games, and Drayden Norwood was always able to step up, and it was largely seamless. Like, there were always, as there were going to be with a redshirt sophomore like Norwood, there were growing pains, but the potential is definitely there, and I definitely feel pretty decent about him at that CB2 spot. I think Toriano Pride has to be the guy that Mizzou expects. It kind of feels like they expect him to be. He needs to just kind of step in, be that like championship tested CB1. I don't really think he played too much in the postseason, like when Clemson was going to it, because he was so young at the time. But Toriano Pride, I mean, he was a very, very celebrated transfer, rightfully so. It's a homecoming for him. He's from East St. Louis, and you don't really get guys from places like Clemson too often. Well, I guess if you're Mizzou, you do. Kenny's talked about it a lot with Joseph Charleston, Nick Honor, and whatnot. But
Kelly Bryant.
Yeah, Kelly Bryant. But Toriano Pride and Drayden Norwood absolutely have to be hits, and then you just have to get one of Nick Deloach, Marcus Clark, Jamarian Wayne, Shamar McNeil, or maybe it is a Jaron Sensabaugh or a Cameron Keys that step up as that third corner. But the depth is definitely the scariest part for me in all of this, because just one or two injuries in this room could really all of a sudden look like it has some problems.
So I'm going to ask you just to kind of appease me with these numbers with Toriano Pride. And I look at the one hand, it kind of looks maybe better even than when I was first writing it down. But he had, in 4 games last year, he had 14 tackles, 4 pass deflections, finished with a 66.1 coverage grade and a 63 tackle grade. Obviously, you've got the hometown factor, and Drink wanted him out of high school, and he's a teammate of Luther Bird, and I think he said he knew in like week 6 of last year that he was coming back. I don't know. Those don't feel like crazy numbers. I get it was at Clemson and it's a competitive room. You mentioned Nate Wiggins. Like, he was he did most of his work against Wake Forest and FIU. He had 7 tackles against Wake Forest, 5 against FIU. I don't know. I guess, can you put those numbers into perspective for me? Like, when I look at those PFF grades, they don't seem super stand out. And I feel like, maybe we should be expecting a little bit bigger of a jump than fans maybe thought initially, just because he's coming from Clemson. What do you think?
I mean, well, it's like we mentioned. I mean, playing behind Nate Wiggins, and there was another corner there whose name is escaping me.
I'll find it. I'll find it. You keep going.
Yeah, but I mean, that was just kind of what it was. Toriano Pride wasn't ever going to put up probably the numbers he wanted because he wasn't getting on the field a ton, and when he was, maybe he was pressing a little too much to just try and make plays. But look, man, at the end of the day, Clemson people spoke very highly of him. Said it was a total business decision for him to just transfer, not anything personal. They like him. The staff has to like him at this point. I mean, because he was the only corner they went out and added in the portal. So clearly they have a lot of faith in not only him, but just the room as a whole. So it's interesting, those numbers, but again, I don't know how much you can. It's just tough because he was more reserved than he was on the field. So it's kind of tough to judge.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think I just kind of, I don't know. I was curious to get a perspective on those. Is it Andrew Makuba? Is that who you were thinking of?
That sounds right. Was he a freshman?
He is
What
a
year is
senior at Texas now. He transferred to Texas.
Huh, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong one. But I know he was behind Nate Wiggins and one other
Sheridan
corner.
Jones?
I think that's it. I think that's who it was. I'd have to look it up again, but yeah, it was just a numbers game. That's an elite school. It's an elite corner room. Toriano Pride just kind of got caught up in the numbers game. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, that Mizzou is relying on Clemson CB3 to be maybe a CB1. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of a change of scenery. Clemson is still a program that recruits elite talent out of high school. Say what you want about their approach to the portal. They get guys out of high school. They get elite level players.
Yeah. With some of these other young guys kind of pushing Marcus Clark, who I feel like, like you said, was kind of coming in, seemed like the out and out, maybe corner 3, 12 tackles, 2 picks, 2 pass deflections last year. But for the two, kind of younger guys beneath him, I'm talking Shamar McNeil and Jamarian Wayne. Obviously, I mean, Wayne managed to get into a bunch of games. I think he played all 13 games on special teams and played in 3 in the actual DB room. Shamar McNeil redshirted. I mean, what should the expectations be, I guess, for those guys? And you touched on it a little bit, but even, you throw Sensabaugh, Cam Keys. I mean, it's just hard to think like that it can be just another development year for them, because you kind of need to have, I think, one of them, whether it's overtaking Marcus Clark or just stepping up alongside him to have like a cornerback pairing. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you kind of need to have one or two of those guys maybe become your cornerback 3B, if that makes sense with Clark. I don't know. Maybe I'm spouting nonsense here.
Yeah, I mean, with Wayne, McNeil, Keys, and Sensabaugh in particular, I mean, Keys and Sensabaugh, I think more likely than not, you're getting a red shirt out of both of them, really, unless one of them really forces the issue. I mean, Keys, we have heard, Gabe Dierman did mention they like what they've seen from him. Sensabaugh, I mean, he doesn't even have his number, I don't think, just yet. So kind of don't feel like you'll see a lot from him or Keys this year. With McNeil and Wayne is interesting because, like you mentioned, he played every game on special teams. But this is his third, fourth position now, from safety, receiver, this now. He's kind of bounced all over the place. So if he steps up and maybe can contribute in some form or fashion, there's almost certainly going to be an injury. So one of McNeil or Wayne or maybe Keys, I'm sure Deloach will get plenty of reps. They're going to have to step up. McNeil is also interesting because, I mean, it even says it in Mizzou's roster bio of him. If you look on the YouTube, you can see. I mean, he got a red shirt last season, but last year, I mean, he made his collegiate debut against Arkansas, and then he had to play. He played in the Cotton Bowl, and I actually do remember a couple of the plays he made in the Cotton Bowl. And I mean, you look at McNeil's size; he's listed at 6'3". Take it with a grain of salt on the roster page, but that type of size, if you can get a productive, if he can hold his own out there, that size really will come in handy for him. So I think there's a decent chance we don't see much of Keys or Sensabaugh at all, but McNeil and Wayne, one of those two, I'm sure will get a chance to play a decent amount of snaps this season.
Yeah. Geez, Jamarian Wayne just has moved. It's almost felt like he's been around the team so much, even though he's just a sophomore, because he's just flip flopped, just back. And
yeah.
forth.
Well, I mean, he was also a red shirt, so he's a red shirt sophomore.
So if you're looking at the depth chart right now, I think it's still Norwood and Pride as cornerback 1 and 2, and then that second unit. Are you doing Clark and McNeil or Clark and Deloach at this point, given what you've heard? Because
It's
that's
probably
where, to me, like, I look at that purely and I'm like, man, the fact that fourth cornerback spot's like not super nailed down, it's a little
just based off what people are like saying, all the reporters and whatnot. It seems like Deloach is probably CB3 right now, and I think that would make Clark CB4, which is what he was last year, and played pretty well at last year, mind you. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think if you go too deep on Pride Norwood and then Deloach Clark, that's not bad. I think that's okay. I think you can definitely do better, but I think you could do a lot worse as well. Really, there's just no good way to replace guys like Ennis and Cad in one off season. It's just a tough thing to do. You just kind of have to hope that you the guys you recruited from high school, guys like Jamarian Wayne, Shamar McNeil, maybe Cameron Keys or Jaron Sensabaugh, one of them steps up, and that makes things a lot easier on you.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. So we'll keep watching it as fall camp kind of continues. But I wanted to kind of just examine it a little bit because Gerard's article inspired me, and obviously Nick Deloach seems like I might be challenging for a lot more PT than we maybe thought. All right, Payton, I have a basketball thing we're going to talk about in a second, but before we do that, I have a new game that I want to play, and I want to keep doing it with Kenny too. I figured this would be a fun way to discuss some fall camp stuff with the interviews coming out. Obviously, it seems like there's a lot more player access now for people. I don't have a name for this game yet, so feel free at home if you enjoy it to help give me a name for it. But Payton, you're going to have to name the attributor of this quote. All right. So I believe I have 6 or 7 quotes. I'm going to give you a list of names from which this quote might have come. Each quote might have come from. You have to guess who said it. Does that make sense? So
Yep,
your options for the players are Toriano Pride, Trevez Johnson, Nick Deloach, Corey Flagg Jr., or Marcus Bryant. So one of those. There can be repeats. So I'm going to read you the quote, and you have to guess who said it, who you think said it among that group. And I can read you the names again. He's pulling up.
It's very tough because I know Gabe DeArmond mentioned like they have. It's kind of amazing how much winning does for a program because now Drinkwitz is totally willing to just let everyone talk to the media.
Seeing Nick Deloach as a redshirt freshman step up to the podium or be at the table
would not have happened after the Kentucky game 2 years ago.
Definitely not. All right. For your first quote, some of them are kind of easy because they'll reveal a little bit. I made some easy and some that might be a little more difficult. This first one might be kind of easy. Your quote, St. Louis is a small city. Everybody knows each other.
That would have to be Toriano Pride.
Correct.
Because he's from East St. Louis. Very easy.
Toriano Pride was talking about St. Louis. Yeah, we'll start you off with an easy one. Next one. I love Mizzou. I say that so much. Who said that?
Okay, well, that doesn't reveal anything. So there's Corey Flagg. There's
Nick Deloach, Toriano Pride, Marcus Bryant, or Trevez Johnson.
I think that's a Trevez Johnson quote. Second-year guy.
Is that your final answer?
No, because that's definitely not it. You would have just told me if I got it right.
It was Trevez Johnson. You're correct.
Okay, cool. There we go. Yeah.
You got that one right. Okay. Next one. You can only talk trash to people that are entertaining.
Only talk trash to people that are entertaining. Nick Deloach, Flagg. I'm going to go Deloach. That sounds like a kind of a redshirt freshman quote.
Incorrect. That was actually Toriano Pride again talking trash to Mizzou's receivers.
Do we have any context for these quotes?
I just said that. He was talking about like what he was asked. He was asked about like what how he goes about. He said he's quiet off the field, but he gets really loud on it, and people were asking him about his like how he approaches trash talking.
Okay.
Yeah. Trevez Johnson, I don't know where the I love Mizzou comes from. And then the first Toriano Pride one, he was being asked about him and Luther Burden, so they talked about St. Louis.
Right.
coming back. Next one. It was kind of like a puzzle piece, and then ellipses later on in the quote. They were emphasizing how I'm the puzzle piece to the puzzle.
Corey Flagg. I heard this one.
No, it was not
Dang
Corey
it.
Flagg.
Corey
Marcus
Flagg had
Bryant.
something like that. Oh, no, I do remember seeing this. Yeah.
Marcus Bryant said that one. He was doing his full interview in shoulder pads, by the way, which rocks. I love that a big offensive lineman, he's just like sitting there with his shoulder pads.
Football guy.
Football guy. Asked about being a transfer. Next one. Double legs on a wrestling mat translates to tackling.
This does not help me at all. Corey Flagg.
No, that was Nick DeLoach. Nick DeLoach wrestled in high school. There's your bonus fun fact.
Would not have guessed that for a cornerback at all.
Yep. I guess Eli
Hopefully
Hoff
that translates to sound tackling.
Credit to Eli Hoff for uncovering that fact. Your next quote, everybody's eating in the backfield.
Corey Flagg again.
Corey Flagg did say that one.
Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to find one of Corey Flagg. He didn't have Corey Flagg. I watched his recent interview, which everyone should do. I believe it's on the Power Mizzou YouTube channel. I am a Corey Flagg guy after watching that. He seems awesome.
That's another position battle. I mean, there's like 4 guys that could legitimately start for Mizzou at linebacker this year.
We'll have to examine that next one.
Here's Corey Flagg's brother, Caleb, if you're watching on the YouTube.
He was also asked about Caleb Flagg. He was very excited to play them. Your final quote. This one should be an easy one. Running straight through me. I don't think that's going to work.
Crap, I heard one of them say this. I saw this on Twitter. Oh, that sounds like a Flagg one again, but maybe it isn't. So there's Corey Flagg. There's Nick DeLoach. There's Marcus Bryant.
Toriano Pride and Trevez Johnson.
And Trevez Johnson. It was Trevez, I think, that said that.
Incorrect. It was Marcus Bryant again.
That makes more sense.
He was asked, I think the question was like, you're not a small guy. How easy is it for your defensive teammates to run through? And he's like, it doesn't happen.
Right. So. Yeah, he's 6'8", 318. As you can tell from his photo on the Mizzou website, his whole head doesn't even fit in his shot
in
until
the frame.
You click it.
He just wearing shoulder pad. It's such a football guy move. Great football guy move from Marcus Bryant. There you go. There's your who said what in the latest round of interviews with Mizzou players at fall camp. I will do it. Should we keep doing those? This is our trial run of that game. Should I do another?
Yeah, we'll just have to iron out some things, but
yeah,
I think it's a good way to keep things in the loop. Yeah,
some criteria.
Here's Luther Burden smiling.
Peyton's just been clicking through the roster while he's been doing this. If you're not watching on the YouTube, there you go. Before we go to quick hits, Peyton, I have a basketball thing for you. I'm gonna completely shift gears because we don't.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, we don't talk. We obviously it's September. We're talking a lot of football, but I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I'm just curious your thoughts because obviously it's an expanded SEC, and Mizzou is coming into a really interesting season, and there's been good coverage of it. We've talked about it ad nauseum, the offseason, all the additions and stuff. I would like to know on this Monday, August 12th, at this point in time, Peyton, what is a reasonable way too early prediction for where Mizzou finishes in the SEC? Because I have seen things from like 8th or 9th to like 15th. And I think it's obviously hard for anyone to pinpoint it down because of the weirdly bad season that they had last year. You think naturally the talent that has come in, there's going to be some improvement. But where do you think is a reasonable place? Where do you maybe have them right now? And obviously this might change before October, I realize.
I mean, if I had to guess, they didn't get any like straight up elite players out of the portal because that was just never going to happen. But they did get a lot of quality players. Like Mark Mitchell started for Duke, started every game for Duke, and now he is playing for the Missouri Tigers. Jacob Cruz was one of the most productive mid-major players in the nation last year, and Mizzou got him within hours of the portal being open. There's Marquise Warwick, who right now I believe is the points leader for college basketball because he's been playing that long and he's just a scorer.
That's a great fact. That's a
It's
great
something
fact.
like that. I'd have to go back and find it. Someone wrote something about it. I would, but the thing is, like, you still have that 0-19 taste in your mouth. So you don't, that puts a damper on everything. If Mizzou had gone, like, let's say even just like 5-13 in conference play last year, I think I'd probably be putting them down as like probably top half of the league. I don't know if I'd put them at like top 4 or anything like they were in Dennis Gates' first year, but I'd be pretty confident they'd finish top half.
With what record?
With like, if they went 5-13 last year
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
coming into this year, I would
You'd
think,
have them. Okay.
yeah. But they didn't do that. They went 0-19. Now most of those players are gone. And that's a very good
God.
thing. It's pretty much starting from scratch once again. But they did bring back Tamar Bates, who I think most people were happy with last year. I think that was one of the few bright spots on the team. I really like having Tony Perkins in the fold. I think that just makes things so much easier for Mizzou, having a point guard that is very experienced in the mix. If I had to guess right now, Knowlton, I think I'd say Mizzou will finish. Well, do they still say they still play 18, even though there's 16
Yes,
teams?
it is. It is still 18 games. They might change it to 20, but they're not doing that yet.
Okay, I will probably go with around. I think they win 7-9. So either 7-10 or 9-9 in that range. I think that is what they finish. I think that puts them around 10-12 in the SEC. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's actually pretty good when you consider the recruiting class that's coming in. So long as you go 7-10, but like guys like Anor Boateng or Peyton Marshall don't look as overmatched as Trent Pierce and Ant Robinson and Jordan Butler looked in their freshman seasons, I think you're probably looking at a very optimistic next few years for Mizzou.
I think you have to understand too, like in a 16-team SEC, 10th place is a borderline tournament team if you can get a win or two in the conference tournament. Mississippi State last year, when there was a 14-team SEC, was 9th, I think, and they went to the tournament. Granted, they beat Auburn, I believe, who, was a good team, and that was a big win. Oh, also, before I go on this tangent, you are right. Marcus Warwick, 2,246 points. He will enter the 2024-25 campaign with the highest tally among Division I players, which absolutely rocks. But anyway, yeah, back to what we were saying. I think that's not only like a reasonable or like a, I don't know if that should even feel reasonable. I think Missouri fans should feel really good about that if they finish that high.
Yeah, no, I don't come into this season thinking Dennis Gates needs to make the tournament or finish 6th or 7th in the SEC to save his job. I really don't. I think last year was a very good wake-up call for them. I wanted to see how the staff responded in the portal, just with the recruiting after getting, let's face it, quite frankly, cute and too smart for them for their own good, with additions like Jesus Carolero last year. They went out and they got actual dudes. They got Mark Mitchells instead of Jesus Caroleros. They got Marquise Warwicks instead of settling for Caleb Brown. I think that is a big testament to Dennis Gates recognizing last year was absolutely unacceptable and he needed to shake things up. And they didn't go out and bargain bin hunt in the portal. I don't believe. Wow, that is really depressing that if you take a look here on the YouTube, they added Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC standings just for like kind of because they can now, and they have them at 0-0, and they're still in front of Missouri. So
Vanderbilt won 4 games last year in SEC play.
Yeah, and Mizzou did not pick up 1. I mean, well, let's just never discuss it again.
Probably, yeah.
Last year was a total debacle. I mean, needless to say, if that happened, if anything even close to that happens again, you're probably looking for a new head coach at the end of the year. But I think if you get to 7 wins in conference play, you finish in the 10 to 12th range in the SEC. It's still not great, but if the freshmen look good, you have a few competitive wins in there, like a few sneaky wins. Like let's say maybe you can knock off a
Kentucky,
team like Florida, or maybe they
South
knock off
Carolina.
A&M this year. Yeah, South Carolina. Like I think that goes a long way. I think you can probably buy yourself another year in 2025 where you're like, okay, now we got to look at like, let's make the tournament again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are good takes. For context, too, the Mississippi State team I brought up last year, they did win 21 games overall, which I don't expect Mizzou to do, but they went 8-10 in conference and made the tournament. So
yeah, they were 9th, like you said. LSU went 9-9 and finished 8th. They did not even sniff the tournament because they were horrible in non-con.
Yeah, they lost to Nichols. You remember that?
Yep. In the opening game of the year. Ole Miss, remember when they were when they were like 12-0?
Yep. Yeah, there was a lot of fraud in the SEC last year was on the whole just so weird. I mean, you had
it was
South
not a
Carolina
good league, which makes it even funnier that Mizzou just found a way to lose 18 times.
It was not a good league. South Carolina was randomly good. Alabama finished 4th in the conference, went to the Final Four. Like,
dude,
Al left. Yeah. Arkansas was terrible, and they were supposed to be the best team in the conference. It was crazy times. We won't get too in the weeds with basketball because
that's down the road.
Yeah, that's down the road. Why does that say on Alabama's record 24-12-1? They have a tie.
Don't know. You can't click it, so I'm not.
You can't tie.
So they tied some road game, I guess.
They tied. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I just was curious because I was talking to some people about that. So I guess put in the comments if you want. Where are you right now in August saying a reasonable finish for Mizzou men's basketball is? And obviously, we'll have Drew King on close to the season and we'll get a better gauge and go into the weeds.
Will be discussed again.
Yeah, this will be discussed again. But I wanted to bring it up now, Payton, because I thought of it. I figured you might have some input. I'm very excited for basketball. I'm very excited for football. Put your thoughts on the cornerback room for Mizzou and where you think the men's basketball team might end up. It'd be good. And we'll maybe we'll deep dive another position group, maybe next show or the show after, just to keep things rolling on that front. Please scroll away from that, Payton. Please just thank you. All right. Kenny will be back. I will be gone, unfortunately, for quick hits, but we will wrap up the show with Payton and Kenny doing that. So for me, until next time, I will see you later, but enjoy quick hits.
Right, it's quick hits time. Just Payton and I for this segment, and I thought a good place to start. Didn't really have too much that came up this week on trivia, especially Mizzou related. So I wanted to go back because we looked at some of these recent draft hauls of Mizzou players, and one season, one draft that really didn't feature many Mizzou Tigers was the one during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. So that would have been our freshman year, Payton. There were only 2 players selected from Mizzou, maybe some other guys that were signed afterwards, but only 2 that were actually drafted. I want you to name the players, the round, and the team that they were taken.
Okay, so this is 2020. So this would have been after 2019. Okay, Albert O was 1. Albert Okwebunam was drafted by the Broncos in round 4.
Correct. That is the second one.
Cologne Castillo and Yasir Durant were both UDFAs. Cale Garrett was a UDFA. None of those receivers made the league. Roundtree and Beatty were still the running backs, so it wouldn't have been them. DeMarcus AC was a UDFA. Perkins definitely did not make it.
If you need a hint, I can give you one.
I know it.
Okay.
I know it. My Spanish class buddy, my elementary Spanish class buddy, Jordan Elliott was taken in round 3 by the Cleveland Browns.
Correct. I was going to give you, that was my hint, was Spanish class. Jordan Elliott was a 4-star according to 247, and Albert O was a 3-star according to 247. I think that's a really cool feature that they show here on 247, even looking back to 2019, Drew Lock and Terry Beckner Jr. Terry Beckner Jr. was a 5-star. He went in round 7. So I think that's
Injuries.
just a fun, it's just a fun thing to look at too. You can see the ratings and where these guys ended up.
This is a fun tool, like especially when we just need trivia in a pinch. Look at Jamon Moore, the lone 2018 draft pick, Charles Harris in round 1. Boy, Mizzou has picked it up lately, huh?
For sure. I mean, you look at it, you're scrolling up a little bit. 5 draft picks in 2021, only 2 in 2022, and Isaiah McGuire was the lone one in 2023.
Yeah.
But then, of course, 2024 was a big one with 6 draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very, very cool. I enjoyed that one, Kenny. I would hope you bring this one back out.
Yeah, I'll do some more soon in that sense. But this was a fun one. I think it was good too. That was just our freshman year. Also, I need to just get out of this ad with this stupid.
Our solar panels
bug.
right for your home, Kenny.
Yeah, it's a terrible ad. Okay, my Tiger in the Wild goes to Tyron Hopper, who's earning defensive opportunities with the first team. Quote here: "I just feel like I'm getting better every day, taking coaching and try to put it into the team 11 on 11 and trying to be consistent." Looks like I read some other tweets too. It seemed like some Packers fans were pretty excited about Tyron Hopper, and he just seems like a good guy on the team as well. They did their little bike event with the kids in need recently, and he seemed like he was having a lot of fun with that. And I know a lot of Packers fans, just NFL fans, probably have seen that before at Packers training camp. So just all around, it seems like he's meshing well with Green Bay.
Yeah, there's too many Tigers on division rivals for me. But there is also Larry Borum on the Bears, so there is that. But I mean, Tyron Hopper, I mean, we've seen like the potential with him. I mean, he's very athletic, very good sideline to sideline. It's just kind of I think missed tackles are like the big concern for him. If he can clean that up, he'll be a monster, much to my chagrin.
Who's your Tiger in the Wild, Payton?
My Tiger in the Wild is also going to be a division rival, Cotton Bowl champion Tiger. It's going to be Ennis Rakestraw, because Ennis Rakestraw, he's been getting a ton of buzz in camp with the Lions, and he lit it up in his first opportunity in the preseason. You see it here, tweet from PFF College if you're watching on the YouTube. Lions rookie Ennis Rakestraw Jr. in preseason week 1, 25 coverage snaps, 2 times targeted, 0 yards allowed, 81.7 coverage grade. Those numbers are pretty good, folks, and it's not a surprise at all. Again, Ennis Rakestraw did not put up numbers in college because nobody was throwing at him, and I think we're going to quickly see why.
Some of the snaps were against Drew Lock, who is unfortunately going down with an injury now. Did not look like a good preseason appearance for him.
Yeah, he got an oblique injury, I think it was, and he also threw a pick that Ennis Rakestraw was in coverage for, and it went to I believe it went to Kirby Joseph's hands. I could be wrong about that, but bummer for Drew Lock, but good for Ennis Rakestraw. And Knowlton's Tiger in the Wild is going to be Marcus Golden, who we just talked about like last week, I'm pretty sure. He got re-signed by the Steelers, and he said it like to a reporter, like, I don't know why it took so long. I kind of just assumed I was retired. Well, fast forward to Friday, I believe this was. He is now actually retired. I guess he just kind of probably got into training camp and just realized his body wasn't responding well. He just didn't have the same juice. So Marcus Golden, after a pretty long career, he's just calling it quits. He's riding off into the sunset. He had 51 sacks with was the Cardinals, Giants, and then the Steelers, I believe, were the teams he played for. So good for Marcus Golden. Hopefully he has a long and happy and healthy retirement.
33 now. I like this final sentence from the NFL. Now he's rushing into retirement. That's just always a fun thing to say. Okay.
Pass rush in retirement. Oh, very funny.
Moving on. Headlines of the week. This is a really good one, and I know Payton really wanted it, but I took it before he could. This comes from Columbia, Missouri, and Tigers show potential hurry-up lineups at practice. I don't care about that part. I care about more players nominated for awards. Let's go down to the sub-headline. And in the third paragraph, I'm going to give her a shout-out. Amelia Hurley, who's doing great work at the Columbia, Missouri. Her third paragraph. Connor Tollison was also nominated Friday for the Dave Remington Trophy watch list. which is awarded to the best center in college football. The award recipient will be determined by the Walter Camp Foundation, Sporting News, and Football Writers Association of America. I'm sorry I beat you to this one, Payton. I know you and Connor Tollison are very close, physically, mentally. You guys are just paired on whatever universe, whatever plane you might think. And, I'm sorry I beat you to this one, but I want your thoughts on Connor Tollison being nominated for this watch list.
So when Connor Tollison snaps the ball, he looked much improved last year. He was more or less a very good blocker, which is great. But Kenny, a big part of being a center is snapping the goddamn football. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that Connor Tollison was really bad at it last year. And I just would like to see that cleaned up before I'm ready to hand out the best center in college football award to him.
Pulling up a post real quick. College football team of the week 1 last year, the center was Connor Tollison.
Yeah, okay, he pancaked a couple South Dakota Coyotes. Does that really move me?
Jaden Lewis, who is a friend of Jack Knowlton's. So no one was going to tell me that PFF has Mizzou Connor Tollison rated as the #1 center. This was last season.
I guess they don't count snaps. Do you remember the LSU game, Kenny?
Vividly. Yes.
Do you remember how they lost that game?
Yes, there was a Heisman Trophy quarterback on the other side that was just tearing up holes into the defense.
But do you remember the part where Mizzou was at midfield with about maybe 2 minutes left with a chance to tie or take the lead? And then on a 3rd and 6, a snap caught Brady Cook off guard and it went over his head, forcing Mizzou.
We're all human.
But not all humans get nominated for the best center in the country award. Anyways, let's move on to headlines. This isn't like a specific headline, but the headline reads on ESPN: 2024 Summer Olympics medal tracker. The Olympics have concluded. They concluded with the women's U.S. women's basketball team narrowly, like by a foot, winning the gold in women's basketball. That ended the Olympics, and it gave the U.S. the tie with China for most golds in the Olympic, 40 golds apiece. But the U.S. has the tiebreaker in total medals earned, 126 to China's just 91. So that's it, Kenny. The U.S. won the Olympics.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I would be pretty ashamed of my country if we didn't win this. And maybe I'm just saying that as a guy who's going to sit on the couch after this and probably crack open a Pepsi or something. But we are the best athletes in the world. And I think some of these games were a little bit too close for comfort, some of these competitions. But nonetheless, congrats to all the really everyone that competed in the Olympics and then those who won medals. But yeah, I think you go into every Olympics expecting the United States to just run away with it.
Mm-hmm. This is our bread and butter, for lack of a better term. I mean, this is what the U.S. does. Would like to not tie China in golds next time. I think we need to strive for the lone lead there. But you know what? Tiebreakers exist for a reason. U.S. wins the Olympics. Jack Knowlton's headline. Jack Knowlton's headline is a doozy. First of all, let's address the elephant in the room. He used an Outkick link, all right, and I don't think Outkick is the way to go, but they're probably the only one that talked about this story, and it is kind of a wild one. So George Mason, they were going to go. Their men's basketball team was going to go on a trip to the Bahamas. It was supposed to be just, one of those fun team bonding trips where they run around like what Mizzou had in Jamaica last year before they went 0-19 in conference play. One of those types of trips. But it kind of looks like they got scammed. There's not a whole ton of details out there other than the statement that was put out by the organizer, other than just some other ramblings from people that might be in the know. So they showed up to the airport, apparently, George Mason did, and they just found out they didn't have flights booked to the Bahamas. There were no games, no hotel reservations. And this was a big problem because there were boosters for the George Mason program that were already down there in the Bahamas. So it kind of looks like there's not a whole ton of details out there. Again, there was a statement put out by the 7 group, I believe it's the Roman numeral 7, that said, "It is with deep regret and sincere apologies that the 7 group announces the cancellation of the George Mason University men's basketball team's foreign trip to the Bahamas, initially scheduled for this summer. This unforeseen outcome is not only a profound disappointment to all involved, but a failure that we at the 7 group take full accountability for." Yeah, they were supposed to fly to the Bahamas. Their first game was supposed to be pretty soon after they took the flight, but none of it ever happened because none of it apparently even got booked. So very weird. I very much want to see what else comes out of it. But yeah, very interesting situation.
I didn't even know George Mason had basketball boosters. I think that's really cool, though. I mean, that's the only thing I took from it. I like the Fire Fest memes. For those that don't know about Fire Festival, which was just a complete scam. I think back in like 2017, maybe earlier than that. The logos about that are a lot of fun. But overall, this is just, I don't know how this is happening in 2024 with the NCAA basketball team.
Yeah, I'm like, so I assume if I had to guess, it would be like this group, the 7 group, was like the one they tasked with getting the logistics of all of it together. And so the 7 group probably gave money. Somebody gave money to someone to get all this booked. And then they just showed up at the airport and realized, oh, there's nothing booked. So we gave them our money away for nothing. Very strange stuff. I hope there's more updates to this.
Yeah, I think it's a good place to pivot. Speaking of strange and getting duped, Payton, do you have a joke of the weekend to wrap us up?
I sure do, Kenny. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show, by the way. Kenny, how do you organize a space party?
You invite all the stars.
That's a good one. That's good, but it's not the answer.
I know.
The answer is you plan it.
That's good. That is good.
See?
That's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
It is.
Huh.
You plan
it.
Okay.
Well, that's going to end things for us and quick hits in for the show. Hope everyone has a good week, and we'll catch you guys on Friday with hopefully some more Mizzou news as we approach week 0 and then week 1, Thursday game. We love those, and so we'll see all of you guys soon.